Welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere with your host, Chris Parker.
And we are back with Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere. This is Chris Parker, and I have Guus van der Mond with us today. And he is the founder of the machine learning company, which is part of Squadra. I'm really excited to talk to Guus because he has been working in machine learning and AI and creating value with that for the last couple of years. He's been in digital transformation and digital consulting for a lot longer than that. So really fascinated to see, what he has been learning and how he is bringing, I guess, the power of machine learning to the market. So Guus, welcome and thank you very much for the time. Can you please share with us all, what is it, Guus, that you do and why do you do what you do?
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me as well. Yes, I'm the founder of Squadra Machine Learning Company. And basically, we help our customers with applying data science and artificial intelligence to help them, well, most of the times reduce costs or sometimes also to increase the revenue. And we do that for a large part in the chain of suppliers, wholesalers, and retail. So we focus on e-commerce, but we also focus on product data, on the supply chain, sort of a lot of things that we do, as long as it's within the value chain between suppliers and consumers in the end.
And why, for you, is this something important to spend your life working on?
Yeah. Well, that comes back a little bit of history then. Like you said in the introduction, I also spent quite a lot of time, 16 years in total, working for Conclusion. And Conclusion is an IT company with a lot of units, separate units. And I was responsible for one of the units. Actually, I started that unit, which was called Conclusion Digital. And we were a software development company. So we developed a lot of nice software, custom software for customers. And in the end, we also had some standard products in the healthcare market. And it was really fun. And I started it at my own. And 16 years later, we had a company of more than 100 software developers in 3 cities in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, in Utrecht, and in Heerlen. And then Conclusion got sold to a private equity fund. And then I thought, well, this is the time that I can change. Now I can do something else. And then I really was looking forward to do something of myself because within Conclusion, I only had a very small share of within the company. And then I thought, well, I really would like to start something for myself. I had the drive. And I'm also a person who is really driven by technology and what you can do with it. And I didn't want to do the same things that I used to do, also because I had a lot of restrictions. Of course, I wasn't allowed to do the same things in the same markets, at least. So I thought, well, let's do something completely new. And I was involved in the digital transformation, and I was looking at all the technologies that were really speeding up the disruptions and things like that. So, well, I thought, let's take a deeper dive into that. So I looked at IoT, I looked at 3D printing, I even looked at quantum computing, which is a little bit more further down the road, but also to AI, to machine learning. And it got my interest, and then I decided to go a deeper dive into that. So I booked a course on Stanford, and in 3 months' time, I went through quite a heavy data science machine learning track. And I really needed to go back to the mathematics again, and I needed to go back to the computer and designing things and programming, which was really not my thing to do. But I wanted to do this because I wanted to understand what is the possibility and what are the applications of machine learning, what can you do with it? And after that, I was really quite convinced that this kind of technology would really be something that would change the world, would really change the way that we are living and working today. It's really the next step in automation, next step in IT. So that's when I said, okay, let's start a company called Machine Learning Company. And it was really quite a big step because from one day to another, I just had only me, myself, and I, because I didn't have any team around me. I didn't have any customers then yet. I just started and said, well, okay, let's do this. So that was quite a step to take, and driven by the things that you can do with the technology.
Well, hats off to you, because as you know, I was also part of a data science oriented company with some brilliant people. And after about a year of running some amazing projects, we were never able really to get it to land and get it to scale in a way. And so we folded shop. So it's already hats off to you for taking something that's pretty advanced and making it work for the last number of years. So so I'm curious, how do you make it work? So machine learning, which I'm going to ask you in a couple of minutes, define that for us, for everyone else. How do you make a business out of machine learning?
Well, there's also a bit of the momentum in the market. Of course, it's really gained like the last couple of years. And when I started to find my first customers back in the beginning of 2017, I really needed to explain what is machine learning, what is artificial intelligence, and what can you do with it. Because most people heard of it and they had their own ideas with it, but it wasn't really clear what they could do with it. That has improved quite a lot the last years, although a lot of people are still struggling with the definition of machine learning. So basically, I started off and said, okay, this is what we can do with it by showing them, just giving them examples. And the first years, and even still now, we do a lot of proof of concept projects, a lot of pilots to just give us the data and show what it can do. And if you are able to show them what is the possibility of this technology, then people get enthusiastic, of course, and say, well, great, I never knew that this was possible. But even then, it still has to go from an innovation side to sort of moving over to the normal day-to-day business side. Because even sometimes we said, okay, well, this can save you a lot of money because take a look at this use case and we've done it, we've proven it. I say, yeah, great idea. And it was part of an innovation budget, which was a small budget. And well, it takes some time, and sometimes a year, sometimes even longer, to really migrate from that innovation stage to, okay, now we're going to use it in production. And what also helped, and this was the change for my company, because I started off as a projects company and we're still doing a lot of projects, which means that we do work on a time material basis, usually. So more of like a consulting company. But at a certain point of time in 2019, I thought, well, let's also make the move to create a standard product and not only sell it by time material basis, but just sell it by this is a product and pay per use. So if you use it a lot, then you pay more. If you don't use it a lot, then you do not need to pay any high amount of money. And that really helped, because then they said, okay, it's a standard solution. It's sort of proven because we've run it with some other customers as well. And that really helps accepting this kind of technology, because then it's really something you can plug into your systems and, basically click a few buttons and then it works. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but in essence, that's how you can propose it. And that's also how they envision it. And that really helps in the acceptance of this kind of technology.
And what does the technology do? So what is this productized solution? What is the outcome of it?
Maybe I could first explain the definition of machine learning and then explain what we do with it. The definition, the way that I see it, is that for the last 30, 40 years, we have been developing software, which is really in a way like if this, then that. So that's really programming. So if there's some challenge, then an analyst can analyze the process, and then he can make a design for a programmer. And then we say, okay, well, if we make some programming rules, then the software does what it needs to do. And of course, that's all built up of rules that somebody has typed in. With machine learning, you're not doing all of that. You're just saying, okay, well, let's give me a good data set. And within the data set, there's all kinds of intelligence already incorporated in that data. All kinds of relations, all kinds of knowledge about things. So instead of making all kinds of rules for programming, I can say, well, just use this data and to see if we can take that data and create some algorithms from that data. So that's basically what we call the machine learning part. So that means that we use the data to develop some kind of a software, not using all kind of manual rules, but just using the data to do that, to make some functionality that works. So that's the basics of machine learning. And this is not really new. It is something that was invented in the early 60s already at universities, the principle. But in order to do this, it's quite you need quite some mathematical power. So that means that you would use quite a lot of CPU or GPU at these days. So a lot of processing power together with a lot of data. And back in the 60s, 70s, we didn't have a lot of data and we didn't have a lot of computing power. But fast forward to 2020, we have massive tons of data because we've been implementing ERP systems for the last 20 years. We have creating each day a lot of content on YouTube, on social media. There's really a lot of data. So that's one thing. There's really a lot of easy to access and quite cheap computing power. Yeah, if you go to Amazon, if you go to Google, to Microsoft, it's really quite cheap to rent a machine for a couple of minutes, couple of hours, whatever, to do really a lot of great computing stuff. And of course, all the larger companies like Microsoft, like Google, like Amazon, Facebook, they're all realizing that the artificial intelligence is the next big thing. So they're all rapidly developing platforms that you can really easily use to apply this machine learning data. So the combination of those three things make it that it's really quite accessible at these times. Mm-hmm. It's not as hard as it used to be 10 years ago. And it's not as hard as it used to be 5 years ago. And it's not as hard as it used to be 1 month ago, because it's really rapidly evolving and rapidly increasing in possibilities again. That's also why it's really an interesting area, because each month then there will be some new discoveries, some new technologies which they can use then. So that's quite exciting. So the way that we use it, so the standardized products, and they are focusing then on the markets for suppliers, wholesaler, and retailers. And we have defined 3 product sets for that. The first one is on the e-commerce side. So that's on the customer-facing side. And the most obvious one is a recommendation engine, which means that you can make a recommendation for a certain customer of the things that he probably likes. I compare it with Netflix, for example. If you have watched a couple of movies on Netflix, then the algorithm of Netflix knows quite well what other films, movies, series that you might like. It doesn't base that only on your viewings, but it bases them on all the other viewings of all the other people as well. So in that way, you can quite easily make a recommendation engine, which increases sales, because if you see something, oh, that's a nice thing, then you're easy. Then you're, of course, it's easier for you to say, okay, let's buy this product or let's rent a service or whatever. So that's recommendation engines, but also things like conversational commerce. You can use chatbots or voice applications like Google Voice to also give some advice of a certain product, to make sure that the consumer is getting the right directions to buy the right products. There's a churn prediction that we offer. So based on their behavior, based on their buyings, their orders, but also on their clicking and their searching, we can make a profile and we can say, well, this customer has a quite high probability of leaving to another competitor of yours. So if you know that in an early stage, then of course you can give them some extra promotions, give them some extra attention to make sure that the customer is still happy and he stays with you.
Cool.
So those are all examples on the e-commerce sites.
And these are solutions you can plug and play, as you said. Maybe not so easy, but yeah.
To some extent, it's plug and play. Some more and some a little bit less than that. But well, for example, the recommendation engine, yes, we need to feed it up with the data, because we need the data which we can use then to make a recommendation, which is usually the order data. So the data of the sales that's been done. And if that's available, we might also use the clicking data and the search data, because that all enriches your data so that you can make better predictions. So yeah, we need to make a connection to that, but the engine is something that we already have developed. And of course, we need to tweak it because sometimes it's really different data than other customers, but that's sort of more like configuring than just starting from scratch and saying, okay, we need to create an algorithm from scratch right now, because that's not necessary anymore, because we have a lot of things already pre-developed as a sort of a whole fabricates, and we can reuse them quite easily. So in that respect, it's quite plug and play. So that's on the e-commerce part. Some examples on the other part is the supply chain optimization. That is about, okay, can I predict the demands? So demand forecasting. And also related to that, can I also make a prediction on what kind of products that I need to buy at what time, against what price, to get the best optimized model. And both from an availability point of view, I need to make sure that I have enough products to sell or to produce. But also from a cost perspective, because like I said, well, I'm going to buy 100,000 of products, so I have enough in stock. But of course, the cost for the stock will then also increase. So it's a bit of a optimizing all kinds of things together, combining it with some machine learning. But also in the stock itself, for example, we did a project for Ingram Micro. They're being bought over. I recently heard, but they're doing a lot of logistics for a lot of companies. For example, Bol.com in the Netherlands, but a lot of others as well. They have large warehouses and trucks coming, and they offload their products. And what they did is that they said, well, let's go and place these products just in the first available free stock place in the warehouse. Which is fine. And then at the picking, we're going to say, well, okay, let's make a smart algorithm that defines the smartest way of picking. If you do that manually, then somebody needs to go to the warehouse. And yeah, of course, that needs to be an optimized route, so that the sooner he's back with a full bucket of all the products, the better. But for example, if you make the put away process a little bit smarter, so that you say, well, I've got some products, so where do I need to put this? Yeah, of course, I can put this on the first available free spot. But I can also say, well, this is a product which is sold very frequently together with this product. So why not put this together in the locations nearby the other product? Because it saves you a lot of time in picking. And for example, if you are receiving aircos in the winter, then don't put them on the first available, most achievable spot, because you probably won't need them for 6 months. So you can take into account a lot of seasonal influences also to make it smarter, and then you can save quite a lot of time in that. So that's the second one. So besides e-commerce, we have offerings for supply chain optimization. And the third one is actually the biggest. If you look at the type of customers that we have, is optimizing around product data. So we have smart product data management solutions. And well, we have several solutions in that area. For example, if I have data which I want to use for my e-commerce, for example, then of course the data needs to be as complete as possible. It also needs to be categorized in the right categories. Classification of the products we need to do. And if you have a lot of products, then this is really something that takes a lot of time to make sure that the products are in the right categories, to make sure that I have all the features, the product features of such a product, that I all have that in my PIM systems or whatever. So what we do is that we use the machine learning and AI technology to automate these kind of processes. So this is typically not a process that you can automate in a traditional way, because if you define some rules from if something like this, then you should do something like that. Because it's really quite complex. It's a lot of data. So you would really, it will really take you a lot of time to do this. So, but if you use the data that is already there and generate a machine learning algorithm for that, then it's really possible to automate things that before that only humans were really good at. Because we required some intelligence. If I look at some product description, yeah, I can say, well, this is this kind of product, because I have a lot of knowledge about abbreviations, about the type of products, about all the things that are implicitly in the human's head, which are quite hard to program all at the same time. But if I use that data, then I can do this functionality as well. So I can save a lot of manual effort in there, save a lot of time. And also, and from the other part, if I have such a product data, then, for example, I would also like to sell this data. And I pick out two things that we do. One is that you need to have a commercial product description of your product, which is fine. A lot of companies are around that. So you have copywriting companies which do that for you. But it takes a lot of time. If you have a certain product and you want to create the text, it's typically about 15 to 20 minutes to 30 minutes that you would need to write a good text. A text which is also compliant to the SEO rules, so that it contains the right keywords that people search on. Well, and if you have 100,000 products or 1 million products or whatever, then of course, if you want to spend 20 to 30 minutes for each product, it really is too much. You cannot afford that. So there you need to have a different way. So what we did is that we created an algorithm which uses the product features and then automatically generates a commercial product description. And we trained that by using other examples of product descriptions, maybe from competitors or maybe the ones that you previously outsourced to a copywriting company. So we feed that into the algorithm, so it learns from that, and then it is able to export a product description only using the features of the product, and then we can export it also in many languages. So this really enables an organization to say, well, okay, now I have the ability to really transform my long tail data and transform that, digitize that, and then put that available in an e-commerce situation. And of course, I can make unique product descriptions for each product, so that I can also have a high ranking in the search engines. So that's the things that we do for Dutch companies like BCC, also Gamma, Kawai, also Adidas as a supplier, Action. So all those companies are now using our software to generate those product descriptions.
Outstanding. Cool.
Yeah. And the last one that I wanted to mention as another example is that we are able, using our AI technology, to understand what kind of products that we have and also make relations between them. For example, if I have a can of paint, and if I'm looking at this as a consumer point of view, so I'll go to websites, search for some paint, white paint, and I get a piece of white paint. But then I can also say, well, okay, this is not the only white paint that we have, because we have also in a slightly different white color, and maybe in a light gray or light beige or whatever color. And we do not only have this in a 2.5 liter can, but also in a 5 liter can and 1 liter can, or even 200 milliliter can to test it out. So to present the customer the variations that you would have for certain products. Nice. Usually companies do not have this kind of relations. So we use AI to identify those relations, so that it doesn't take a lot of manual effort again to identify which products are related to each other. And you can use that for variant detection, but also for presenting alternative, but also to present them some accessories and upsell products. So then again, we save a lot of time, because we don't need anyone anymore to search through the data and say, well, this product is related to that product. And it also increases the revenue, because into Gamma, a customer of ours from Gamma and Kawai, they use this also in A/B testing. They said, well, let's see what it does. And it turned out that they had a higher conversion rate of 4.9% using the one that had the variants on there. So it really increases the revenue and saves time. Well, what more would you need, I would say, because that's really a great solution for a retailer.
Well, I don't think there's any people that really want to increase revenue or save time. That doesn't sound interesting to me. Yeah. So cool. And the fact that you've productized it, because that was the thing that a couple of years ago when we were starting to move into this space a bit, but more in the intelligence and surveillance type domain, which is slightly different than commerce. But what I was finding was there was two main obstacles. So my question coming up is, who's the perfect customer for this? And the two main obstacles were really the awareness and mindset of the decision makers. Awareness that it's even possible or safe. Because there seems to be fear and uncertainty. And then the other big obstacle was just availability of data, meaning maybe they had it buried in their organization, but it just wasn't accessible, or the quality was poor, or they just didn't have the data. So I'm curious, do you see those obstacles as well? And is there a perfect customer that you have found that have worked through those obstacles in order to create value with machine learning?
Yeah. Yes, I definitely recognize this. The availability of data is in most cases really a prerequisite, although not in all, because sometimes we also can use pre-trained models for this. And it gives you a good example. For example, if we're doing image recognition, and so we have a customer who sells furniture, and they also want to have extra data for this furniture. So does it have 4 legs or 3 or something like that? So they want to extract this data from the images. Then you could say, well, okay, then you should have all kinds of examples of images of those products so that we can train an algorithm on, which might run up into 10,000 or even 100,000 or millions of images that you should have, which is not achievable. However, you can also say, well, there are large parties like Google, for example. Of course, they have a huge database of all the images. So what they did is they sort of pre-trained a model. And that pre-trained model you can then use as a starting point. It's actually, such a model consists of several layers, let's say 8 layers. And then if you are able to say, well, let's leave off the 8th layer, then I have 7 layers left, and I can train with even tens or hundreds of photos, so a lot smaller. I can then train the 8th level, but then I still have a really good, great quality model then. So that is something that wasn't possible 5 years ago, but it is possible right now. So the requirement for the data that you have is really changing also. And for other applications, like for example, maybe also the text generation part, we also use generic language models for that. So that means that you don't have to have the data yourself, because it's something that has been developed by other organizations like OpenAI or any other larger company like Microsoft or like Google or like Amazon or whatever. So there's a lot of things that you sort of can buy and can use as a starting point, and then of course personalize it with your data. So that makes it a lot easier and accessible, more accessible. When it comes down to, artificial intelligence is a bit scary. It's a bit new. It's I don't know what it is. It's sort of like a black box. Well, that's really something that people have to get used to it. And the sort of the key that I found for some applications is that you say, well, you don't even mention that there's machine learning or artificial intelligence behind it. It's just, well, it's a product where you can generate text with it. Okay, that's cool. Then I don't have to write my text on my own. No, you don't have to write the text on your own.
Well, it's a little hard because it's in the name of your company.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's also why we said we are going to release the products. And for example, the products I just described is called Power Text. PowerText.ai. So there's a little bit of an indication that it's about artificial intelligence, but so we were really putting it to the market as a standard solution. And of course, there's a lot of machine learning and AI behind it, but it doesn't always show off because it's just using a Power Text or a Power Class or Power Relate or Power Enrich. Those are the names then of our products that we use. So it comes down also a little bit to how we, what is the proposition that you bring to the market? And yeah, for other customers, I had to come back to your question. Like I said in the beginning, it's really about making a proof because they are scared. They don't know what it is. Okay, let's make it very low entry. Let's do a proof of concept only for a couple of €1,000. Then you can see what it does. And when they see what it is, then really starting to get enthusiastic. And of course, then you need to, from that one place into the organization, you need to spread it out to the other parts of the organization. At the end, you come at an MT level, and then they say, well, okay, this is really great, and let's do this. And I think that also the timing, like I said, 3 years ago, was a lot harder to get people convinced than it is today. Because it's all over in the newspapers, and now sometimes you also have the ethical questions about it, and which is a correct question. Should we do this with our data? And of course, when you're talking about product data, then there's usually not of discussions about it. But if you're talking about customer data, if you're talking about patients, yeah, of course, then you really need to think about that aspect as well.
So, yeah, I think we could do AI and ethics as a whole other series of podcast discussions we could have. But if you are on an executive team of a business that is triggered by some of these words that you're talking about, and they want to orient or discover a bit more, you did a program with Stanford in machine learning. What would you recommend, one or two things that a business executive could do themselves to discover more and sort of up their own, awareness of the strengths and weaknesses of AI? So when they call you with a problem to solve, then they're maybe a bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of courses out there that are available. But I think that the course that I was explaining about is going really was way too technical for an executive to have some understanding. Yes, there are also courses on Coursera and EDX that are usually free that you can follow, but it might take you a little bit more time than an executive might have. Mm-hmm. So I think that the best recommendation is to use the Google search engine and type in some words and see what comes back and see what is already possible. And of course, companies like ours can also help you with, of course, the answering this question. But if you want to prepare yourself, well, nowadays there's a lot of examples available. So if in your business, if you're type in the name of your business, the type of industry that you're in, and extend that with machine learning or extend that with artificial intelligence, and click on the search button, then you probably get a lot of examples already of what is possible, sometimes in a proof of concept form, but it gives you an idea of what the possibilities are. And if you want to talk about some more things, then of course we can help you with that. We are, well, this is for the Dutch market, but we are in the process of finalizing an e-learning to apply AI for retail, for e-commerce, I must say. It's not only retail, it's also wholesale. And that is part of an e-learning set of e-learnings, which is created by thuiswinkel.org, an e-commerce organization. And they are doing a lot of subjects also on product information management, on social media, but also on AI, so on machine learning. And we have just, we're in the process of finalizing this. It's a free course. It takes, I think, at about 1.5 hours, and it will take you to a lot of practical examples. It will explain you the technology. So that is something to look forward to, I guess, if you're in that market. And the language used is Dutch, so that means that it's only understandable for people in the Netherlands. But if you are living in the Netherlands and if you are in the e-commerce business, then I think that's a good recommendation to go to. Yeah.
Nice. And will that be on your website, machine learning company with dashes.nl? You'll be announcing that there, or can they sign up for a newsletter or some other way of finding that?
Yeah, we will also, once it's been released, and I think it's going to be released within a couple of weeks, so it's really quite short. If this is broadcasted, it might already be released, so we will definitely have a link on our website. But it's also available on the thuiswinkel.org website, because there's a list of all the trainings that are available. Like I said, it's for free. You just need to register for it, and then you can have access to these e-learning modules.
Super cool. Well, it's based on our schedule. Yeah, it might be available already. So we'll put the link anyways on the show notes. So whenever you're listening to this, and you can also find it at machine-learning-company.nl. That's where Guus's company is findable. I think for me, last question is, and I'm really appreciating this because I love how approachable you've made it. Because a number of years ago, AI and ML was scary stuff and sort of a dark art. And it sounds like you have, through your experience, sort of crafted it into these propositions which are consumable, which I love. I love hearing, making things simple for people to reuse. And a question about the business case, though, meaning if someone is, that imaginary executive again who's triggered by some of these things, what are things that they would consider when they're talking with you about the business case. So the ROI of machine learning and optimization like this. Do you have any tips or tricks for that? And how can you help them with that?
Yeah. There are two things that are really important. If you talk about, is this something that I can apply? One is, of course, the added value to the business. And the second one is about, is it achievable? And if you talk about the first one, what is the added value to my business? It really comes down to, the two things. Can I save some costs or can I add some extra revenue? And that saving costs is, for example, also related to, okay, what's the quantity of the things that I'm talking about? If you're talking about orders and you only have 3 orders a month, then forget about AI because you will never make an ROI of this. But if you have hundreds of thousands or 10,000 or thousands of orders each month, then yes, you probably can. So take a look at the quantity of the products that you have. And also, of course, how much time would you be able to save? Because, right now you have a group of people who's doing some work. And can we do a lot more work with the same group of people? Or can we do the same work with less people? And they can do something other valuable stuff. So that's one thing to take a look at. And also the things that you do not do at this time because you never thought it was possible. For example, the long tail example I said, okay, we have a customer, they have about 400,000 products. They said, okay, we digitized 40,000 of them. And it was really quite a lot of hassle to get a website with 40,000 products. Great, we've done that. But they still have 360,000 products which are not online. You can never order them online. So by explaining the things that we did, they said, okay, now it gives us an opportunity to do this. So also think about the possibilities that it might enable using this kind of technology. So those are all the things that you can do to contribute to the added value of your business. So that's the one thing. The second one is about, okay, and is it also achievable then? Then it comes down to, okay, take a look at the type of applications and what kind of data I need for this. And you might need have some consultancy in there because somebody needs to tell you, this is something you can do with data that you can buy or algorithms that you can buy, or this is something that you really need your own data of it. And then make an assessment, do I have enough quantity of the data and what is the quality of my data? Because rubbish in is rubbish out, also in this case. So if I have not enough information, not the right data quality, then I can train a model, but the quality of that model will also be bad because my data was bad. So if you have things that are really high value and things that are really achievable, then it's really a go-go. And then it's quite easy to create a machine learning application for it, and which will really save you a lot of time or bring you a lot of revenue. But you need to make sure that you can meet these prerequisites. So in that e-learning that I just told you about, we also conclude ourselves with a model that you can sort of fill it in yourself. It's sort of a sheet that you can fill in and make your own assessment for it. And then it comes up with the things that are of most value, probably the low-hanging fruit that you can start with, or the things that you can say, it's really high value, but start collecting data, because if you don't have the data, then you are not able to do this kind of functionality.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the last thing I'll throw in there just before we wrap up is it valuable, achievable, and ethical? Meaning, is this something you should do? And you already mentioned that, but I wanted to bring it back up because I think that is something that
of course depends a little bit in what kind of business you are, because in some businesses, if you're working with personal data, then it really comes up to the agenda. Like I said, if you're in the e-commerce business, then this is not really a topic to most extent. Of course, you can think of some cases where it is also applicable, but that's more the exception than a rule. Then, yeah.
Great, Guus, thank you so much. Again, if people want to find you, I'll put the link to your LinkedIn on the show notes. Yeah. And also it's machine-learning-company.nl. Once the Tauswinkel e-course is out, we'll put the link in there as well. That'd be super cool if you're Dutch speaking. Valuable there. And it sounds like that little business case template at the end could really be a cherry on top of that whole thing. Yeah. And outstanding. Great. Yeah. Guus, thank you so much for for the time. I've watched you guys evolve a bit over the years with some jealousy because you've been able to pull off what maybe we dreamed about at one point. So well done. Good on you. And it's great to learn from you.
Okay, well, thank you very much also for inviting me, and it was nice doing this, and well, good luck, and I hope that everybody can enjoy the things that we talked about.
Learn more at ebullient.com/podcast.